So I know what you're thinking. All semester long you've been watching me in these videos and thinking, how can I be more like Dr. DuBose? You're thinking that, right? Right? Please? Let's get this out of the way right now. Unless you're a very special kind of person, standing in front of a lot of people and telling them what they need to do isn't exactly a natural state. But it's one that's not as hard to achieve as you think. All it requires is some preparation and some taste. Presentations in front of large groups of people is something everybody likes to do, right? Well, in this class, we're doing it online, so you're not going to have to stand in front of lots of people, but you're probably going to end up doing that at some point in time. So how do you approach these kind of things? And all these hints are also going to be completely apt for your online presentation. So let's break it into two parts, the words and the graphics. So, as far as the words, there are lots of places you can go to get hints on public speaking and how to be effective at it. And these are a few good ones. Practice. Practice transitioning from a transcript to your memory. You don't really want to read. Reading is boring. If I was reading to you, you'd be able to tell it in my voice, and you'd be able to tell it because you would be starting to fall asleep. I never actually come with a paper. I presented at academic conferences, and I don't think I've ever just had a paper in front of me. Outlines. Because you don't want to spend all your time looking down at something. You want to be able to talk to people, not read to people. Outlines, I think, are very preferable because then you only have to memorize small chunks of the presentation, or at least memorize the structure of small chunks of the presentation, and then just look down when you need to know what you need to go on to next. So I'd recommend just trying to boil it down to a few little segments that you can do. And you don't really need to worry about memorizing it word for word, because that's not how people talk. Even back in the olden days of, say, ancient Greece and Rome, the Iliad, the Odyssey, all that stuff, those were all improv. Those people didn't remember them. They would have structures that they jumped back and forth, and they'd know what happened in this scene and go on about it. And then they know what happened in the next scene and go on about it. So practice that stuff and combining that with a level of notes, which is going to allow you to talk to people instead of reading to people. Take your time. You know you have a minimum time limit. You need to practice to see where your discussion is going in terms of time. And you need to be able to calm down and speak like you would to a normal person. I had a friend of mine in grad school. I happened to be a chair at a conference panel, and he was giving his speech, and he had never done that kind of thing before. And he was reading his paper, and he would go on like this, and he'd keep reading until he ran out of breath, and then he'd go on, and it was painful. If you practice, and you practice enough to know how long you're going, if you know you're starting to go long, you cut some material out of there. You're not going to be able to do your full paper in a presentation time anyway. You need to hit the highlights. Practicing will allow you to know how much time your stuff takes. And you want to come in a little under the maximum and a little over the minimum. You don't want to have to rush, or you don't want to have to talk slowly. Don't apologize. Apologizing in general immediately gives the audience the impression that you're, I suck at this, please don't be mad. And if they think that you're going to be horrible, they're probably going to see you as horrible. Confidence is a really good thing to have when you're speaking. And if you can learn to fake confidence, you can fake anything. You know, my first time teaching, one of my professors told me, Mike, just remember this, you're smarter than they are. And the same holds true with any presentation. You know your subject better than anyone else. So own that. You will be watching The Secret Structure Great Talks, where Nancy Duarte talks about how you organize the information, and you want the narrative flow, and you want to build to a powerful call of action. So I'm not going to go over that. I will just say 2 more bits about talking. You're trying to sell something. You are trying to convince the audience that they need to give you money. This is the point. Everything needs to be done as a sales job. You're not just giving me information. You want to wow me. You want to let me know that this is what my product does for you that no other product will do. I can do this better for you. And part of that plays into your attitude. You're selling. Make it a good sale. I can't over-exaggerate how much you should practice. You have to do it in real time. You have to do the run-through. If you don't do the run-through, you're going to have all the anxieties come up. If you've done practice enough to where you know the material, knowledge is the biggest thing you can do to stop anxiety. Now, let's talk about the actual PowerPoint slides. If you're using something other than PowerPoints, that's fine. Most of the stuff will translate over. But the thing is, presentations can be bad because of the visuals you use, or the visuals can help add. You've been through lots of presentations where people just did PowerPoint sin after PowerPoint sin. They did things horribly wrong, like that, or like that. The bouncy is a pretty horrible one. The rising from nothing, whoop. If you're going to do that, you should really put the whoop sound effect in. The moving graphics for no apparent reason. Spinning in. Flipping in. These are all kind of code words for, I don't really have good material, so I want to shock you with images. And they also, what they really end up doing for the audience is screaming out, hey, I just learned how to do all this stuff in PowerPoint. Keep it simple. Simplicity is going to be the key. You're not trying to wow us with your visuals. You're trying to use the visuals to help add a little bit to your words. This is just an addendum to what you're talking about. So don't try to outflash us. Simple is better unless there's a good reason to do something another way. And yeah, that was horrible. This goes back to the second document design day. You want contrast. From any level of distance, that top word isn't going to be all that obvious. Well, apart from the really horrible entrance, you're going to see the light. Having that high level of contrast to make sure that if you're doing this live, someone from the back can see it, or someone from bad sight can see it, even if you're doing it on video. Visual overload. You put very little stuff on the PowerPoints. Go back and look at my videos and you notice that you might get a quote or two on a PowerPoint, but the images are usually just there for prompts. The problem is you put too much stuff on a PowerPoint, I'm not going to be able to read it all. Or I'm going to spend the entire time staring at it instead of looking at you, which means that you're less of a factor in your own presentation. And since you're getting graded on this, don't you want to be a factor in your own presentation? And back to the whole practice thing, another reason why you don't want all the stuff on there is because if there's the full text up there, I have no reason to pay attention to you. And if you're turning around and reading the thing, that's even worse. Clarity is important. There are lots of fonts. Choosing cool over clarity and accessibility when designing your slides. This bit at the bottom here. Or this. You can have a sense of design style. There's no problem with a sense of design style. The problem is being able to read it. The stuff serves a purpose. You'd be shocked at how many people who are selling products don't realize that their name, their logo, and their design pay some level of... They do something for you. They have a purpose. The number one offender? Heavy metal band logos. The first time I saw this, it took me a while to figure out what the name of this band was. That's kind of crap from an advertising perspective, isn't it? One of the most important things you can do when designing slides is to make sure that every single word earns its place. This is vital real estate, folks, and you don't want to waste it on anything that is not absolutely, completely, utterly necessary. If it doesn't help you, it hurts you. And that's good advice. Every minute they're looking at the slide, they're not looking at you. And the stuff needs to help you and not take over for you. Also, let's face it, clutter looks bad. Ever see House Hunters or any of those which places nice cute couples going to buy a house shows? No one can ever see past the clutter to see what the house is itself. All they see are signs that you might be a hoarder. Don't people get distracted by shiny objects? And there's another reason for being leery of having too much stuff on the screen. One of the reasons we're all up here is because we want attention, right? This is why you talk. You want to keep the focus on what you're doing. Why else would we put ourselves in front of people? But guess what? If they're having to get through several paragraphs of made-up mumbo-jumbo, then how much of their attention is on you? That's where you need the attention. And if I was actually talking to you in person with this behind me, nobody would be looking at the thing I said. You'd be trying to squint to see this from back in your seat in the back of the classroom where students always want to sit. It's bad design, it's bad organization, and it draws attention away. Organization is key. You don't want stuff that's flopping all over the place. You want to be able to guide the reader through your presentation with the organization. And this goes for the visuals as well. I mean, it's something that I've said about text early in the semester. Do you give us 15,000 bits of information on a slide? No, because I'm not going to be able to pay attention to any of it. Be selective. Make each thing earn its space. If it earns its space and earns my attention, it needs to be up there for a reason. And we've talked about graphic design, so your presentation does have to look good. If you need a refresher, go back and look at the document design too. It can help you. Ultimately, if there's one thing that you should really pull away from this in your preparation for doing the presentations, it's practice. As I said at the beginning, this isn't exactly a natural thing for a lot of people, so the more you get out there and actually do it, the better off you're going to be. You can bore your family and your friends with it, but even just doing it to a mirror will help. Run through it a few times. Don't go, I'm okay, I can just get up there and fake it. No, I mean, yeah, we're doing this on video, so you have the ability to edit a little bit, but preparation is a whole lot easier. Know the stuff better than anyone else. And then just remember, be an expert, think like an expert, and people will see you like an expert. See you next video.